Hey guys, my name is Marty and I'm here to show you guys how to install a solid core walnut door like a professional. So here are the first steps. The first steps you got to do is set up a laser and then line it with the top of the edges that are next to it. The second step is to take your measuring tape and measure on each side the measurement of the jambs on each side. So I mark them here on both sides as the floor is never straight. The second thing I do is I measure the rough opening. In this case it's 34 inches and I like to mark it. Third step of what I do is I actually measure the frame of the door jambs. In this case here I have 33 1/4. So that means I have 3/4 of an inch, 3/8 on both sides to play with. So I actually write this down too also. 3/8. Alright guys, so I just cut the door jambs and as you can see on top it's perfectly level. The next thing I want to do is to mark the casing reveal at every 12 inches with a little square. I use an adjustable square like this one. I mark it every 12 inches and I mark the intersections on both sides. I'll explain to you why I do this later. Alright guys, so here we go. Marking the intersections and the casing reveal of the casing that I will put later on after the installation. As you're marking the reveal, it's very important that you mark on each bottom and top of the hinges. This will help us when we set up the laser and shim the side of the hinges to make sure that it's perfectly level. We're back, and the reason why I said it was important before to measure your rough opening versus your framing is to know the distance, the equal distance on each side that you have to shim. In this case here, it's 3/4, so I have to set my shims. What I do is I preset my shims at 3/8 of an inch. All right, then I stick them in back, right in back of the hinges. Okay, and then I'm using these GKR screws. They're finished screws. And I will set them right in back of the hinge because this is a walnut door and I don't want the screws to be exposed. So the next step, I'm going to set up the laser here and I'm going to use the reveal marks that I marked to line up my jamb. I'll show you in a minute. All right guys, so I've lined up the laser with my mark, my reveal mark for the casing. And now all you have to do is come down here and put some shims behind the hinge again. Sometimes you gotta be careful because sometimes the stud is warped like this. So be careful on the direction that you put your shims. In this case, it is warped. So I'm gonna put my shims in the same direction. And I'm going to line it up until the laser is perfectly centered with my mark. I like to go a little strong because once you put in the screw, it actually goes in a little bit. So here we go. I'm just going to screw it in. Make sure you're flush with the walls. So we're going to do the same thing with the hinge in the middle. I like to do it right away. Some people don't. So again, this stud is twisted, so I'm putting my shims in the same direction. Line's perfect here. And I put a screw behind the hinge because I don't want any holes showing. for the frame. Okay, this one didn't catch. Alright guys, so the next step is to actually put in the door and check it. We installed the door and now we're just double checking to see if the door is plumb. And what we're going to do now is screw this side of the frame. And what we'd like to have is the same reveal, like here, 1/8 of an inch all the way down. So we're going to do that using some shims. Let me show you how. So I like to start from the top. My reveal was pretty good at the top already. Make sure you line it up with a wall. And here we have no choice because this is an integrated door stopper. So we have no choice to put in a screw. And it's going to be visible, but it's going to be filled in after with our painter, which is going to stain. You just got to be careful. All right, so now we're going to do the bottom. The important step at the bottom, come here, Brent, let me show you. Step over there. When you're screwing the bottom, since we have an integrated door stopper here, you'll have to make sure when you close the door and it hits the top, the bottom has to be also in line here. You want it to function properly. If you don't do that, you're gonna have problems down the road. So now my door is perfectly aligned. I just gotta put in a screw there, and I gotta check my reveal, make sure everything's good. Here I am again, putting some shims. I noticed that the frame is a bit, I'm gonna put my shims this way. And I just line it up with the laser. Obviously, like, you use the laser as a guide, but after, you always double check your reveal, because that's what's very important, is the 1/8 reveal that you want, which is going to be exposed at the end. So you can use the laser for now to do your trial run. You put in a screw, be very careful because this is walnut. Okay. Okay, so we're back. So I've screwed in the bottom. The reveal is good. On the top, the reveal is good, but now here it's a little big. So I'm gonna adjust that by squeezing the shims. Now, as you can see, my reveal is a little tighter at the top. So I'm gonna squeeze this in too. One more. And I'm gonna put my screw. I'm actually gonna put my screw, you know, when you're doing walnut like this, you really want to limit your screw holes. Usually I put them behind the door stopper, but this is an integrated door stopper, so I have no choice to put in like a little screw there. But here I do have a choice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in the striker plate, just so we don't see the screw once the striker plate is ready. I'm gonna tighten this one. noticed that this one needed a little adjustment. So I'll go back and put in my shims. You know, installing doors is a game of patience. And just gotta take the time and do it nice. All right, so let's check the result. All right, so the gap looks pretty good all the way up. And I noticed on the hinge side, in between the hinges, the gap's a little big, so I will add some hinges, just some shims there with no screws. This one's a little strong there. Looks good. All right, so overall, you know, sometimes it's not perfect, but this looks pretty good to me. There you go. My room door installed. Took us about half an hour. So now we just got to put the casings around it. Stay tuned for the next step.